On the surface, that's a wholesome team-first soundbite from an all-star captain excited to share the spotlight with her teammates. And that was the exact story the league and the media ran with, a story of triumph for the Indiana Fever. But as we've learned time and time again, the real story is never the one they give you in the press release. Beneath that simple, happy headline is a story of a cultural civil war erupting within the WNBA, a story of fan bases at each other's throats, accusations of a broken voting system, and the set of numbers that, according to a growing number of fans and analysts, suggests Caitlin Clark's fellow WNBA players just voted against her out of what they're calling pure jealousy. Many of you watching have been pointing this out for days, and you were onto something big. So today, we are filtering out the noise, connecting the dots, and breaking down the data to expose the full story that the All-Star announcement tried to hide. If you're here for that real story, the one that tells you what's really going on behind the scenes, do me a favor and smash that like button. It shows us we're on the right track and that you want the truth, not just the talking points. Okay, so to understand how deep this rabbit hole goes, we first have to look at the official narrative, the one that, by all accounts, should have been a massive, uncomplicated win for the Indiana Fever. The 2025 WNBA All-Star Game is being hosted in Indianapolis, a landmark event that solidifies the city's new status as the epicenter of the league's explosive growth. And in a moment that felt scripted for maximum impact, the host team got its own huge All-Star Weekend announcement. 3 of their own were headed to the festivities. Caitlin Clark, named a starter and a team captain after receiving the most fan votes in WNBA history. Aliyah Boston, their foundational center, also named a starter for the 3rd time in her 3 years in the league. And veteran leader Kelsey Mitchell, selected as a reserve, rounding out the trio. This gave the Fever 3 All-Stars, tying them with the Seattle Storm for the most representatives from any single team in the league. This was a powerful validation of the Fever rising narrative. It was the perfect story, and a moment of immense pride for the organization and its coach, Stephanie White, who couldn't have been more proud of her 3 foundational players.
That 5-on-5 setting, here it's playing together for the first time. How do you anticipate that looking and having 2 point guard ball handlers on the floor at the same time?
I think it'll be really good, for us to be able to get to see off the ball a little bit more, in certain situations. And playing on the floor with Ari gives her that opportunity to do that. I think it can give her a break. I think we can get her and our team different looks when that happens. So, this is really the first time that we've been able to practice that. So look forward to exploring that a little bit more.
What is the structure of having one or the other be on rock ball at any given time? Is it certain sets? Is it a field thing for them? How do you kind of determine how?
No, it'll kind of be organic. Way back in the day, my first time here, I played Bree January and Erica Wheeler together. So I'm used to playing multiple point guards on the floor at the same time. It'll be organic. The only time that we'll probably predetermine anything is dead balls. When we want to get a certain look, maybe after free throws if we want to get a certain look. But really more than anything, we want to be able to play where our high guards run and our low guard gets our outlet. And having Ari on the floor gives us another opportunity to do that.
With Caitlin obviously playing 5-on-5 today, do you anticipate her progressing to be able to play on Wednesday?
I hope so. I think just the same structure. I would say return to play structure as we have been. It's like she gets to do a little bit more, and then we see tomorrow is there progress or is there any regression? How does she feel? How does she look? What does recovery look like? And so this was really the first time we've been able to get her out into live action. So we'll see what it brings tomorrow.
You guys have always talked about those 3, the main 3 as the foundational pieces, but to see them be all-stars, especially here in Indy, is that kind of a fun conversation to have amongst the group about what you're building?
It is. It's really incredible. Those 3 have been pillars. They've done an outstanding job, and I'm proud of all of them. They continue to get better. They continue to embrace the impact that they have on this organization, on this team, while continuing to be hungry for more.
What do you try to make out of something like this where you give these MVP season ticket holders a unique peek behind the curtain?
I think the most important thing is to celebrate them as longtime season ticket holders, to celebrate them, to allow them to see some of the everyday behind the scenes work. The things that you do to prepare yourselves right for when the lights are on. It gives them a unique opportunity to get to know our players a little bit better through these Q&As, to get a little bit more hands-on with pictures and things like that as well. But more than anything, just thank them for their continued support of our organization.
But Dee, how do you reintegrate her back in the fold, both in what you've done over the last few weeks, but also I think she just played like every minute of the last game, so
she was incredible,
she needs
right?
some rest.
Yeah, she'll need some rest. So I'm not sure when she'll be available, but this will, hopefully, knock on wood. I don't know if there's any anywhere near, but when Dee gets back and she is available, this will be the first time that our full roster has been available. And so for us, reintegrating, Caitlin, if we don't have any setbacks, reintegrating Dee, it changes what our rotation looks like. It changes what our lineup looks like. It does give us a little bit more versatility, but it's going to be a challenge, but also something that's necessary for us heading into this All-Star break.
Pillars. That's the key word right there. The official story is one of strength, unity, and a franchise being rewarded for building something special. It's a clean, simple, feel-good narrative. But the moment you look past that headline and into the actual voting data, that clean narrative shatters into a million pieces, revealing a much darker and more complicated picture of the league's internal politics. And it all starts with the fans themselves. So let's peel back that first layer of the onion, the fan vote, because this is where the first signs of a major conflict began to surface. On one hand, the numbers were a staggering display of the Indiana Fever's new cultural dominance. Caitlin Clark didn't just lead the fan voting, she shattered her own all-time record, pulling in over 1.29 million votes. But it went deeper than that. The new, energized Fever fan base mobilized like an army, successfully voting 7 of their players into the top 24. On Fever-centric forums, this was seen as the ultimate badge of honor. A user on the Indiana Fever's subreddit proclaimed, "Y'all, this is what real fans do, ride or die." It was a demonstration of their passion and power. But on the other side of the aisle, in the forums representing the NBA's more established, longtime followers, the reaction was the complete opposite. It was derision. It was criticism. They labeled the entire process a popularity contest and decried what they saw as biased ballot stuffing by this new wave of fans. The entire debate crystallized around one single glaring data point: Lexie Hull. When the fan votes were tallied, the Fever Guard was ranked higher than perennial All-Stars and certified superstars like Sabrina Ionescu. For critics on the general WNBA subreddit, this was, and I quote, dumbfounding. They saw it as undeniable proof that the fan vote had been compromised and was no longer a measure of on-court merit. So right away, the All-Star story wasn't a simple celebration. It was a civil war between the new guard of fans who saw their passionate support as the ultimate goal, and the old guard who saw that same passion as a force that was breaking the league's traditions. But as heated as the war between the fans got, it was nothing compared to what was happening behind the curtain. Because when the players, Clark's own peers, cast their private ballots, they sent a message that was loud, clear, and impossible to ignore. And this is where the accusations of jealousy truly ignite. This is the smoking gun. This is the data point that has sent shockwaves through online communities, and what turns this story from a simple fan debate into something much more personal. This is the number that supporters are pointing to as cold, hard proof of a coordinated campaign against Caitlin Clark. While the fans, in their record-breaking numbers, voted her as the #1 player, her peers, the other players in the WNBA, voted her as the 9th best guard in the league. Let that sink in. On the official ballot, players are asked to rank their peers. And when they did, 8 other guards were deemed more worthy of an All-Star spot this season than Caitlin Clark. Okay, so here is where we have to filter out the noise and read between the lines, because this is the moment the narrative absolutely exploded online. Fans and supporters of Clark seized on this number immediately. To them, this wasn't a legitimate basketball assessment. This was a personal slight. They called it, and I'm pulling this directly from the social media discourse, undeniable proof of league-wide jealousy. The comments were everywhere, flooding Reddit and X. They should be embarrassed. This is a slap in the face. And the phrase that has become a rallying cry for an entire online movement, they aren't beating the allegations. This right here is the "they voted against her" moment. It's the data that supporters point to as cold, hard evidence that there's a widespread sentiment among players to diminish Clark's status, to refuse to give her the credit she's due, and to keep her in what they see as her place. It transformed the entire conversation. It was no longer about new fans versus old fans. It was now about Caitlin versus the establishment players who, according to this narrative, are refusing to pass the torch. So, what's your take on this? Before we go any further, I want to hear from you. Is this a legitimate basketball assessment from her peers based on performance, or is it proof of something else entirely? Drop your theory in the comments below. I'll be reading through them. Now, to be fair, and because we are narrative analysts here, we have to examine this from every angle. It's not enough to just point at a number and scream jealousy. We have to build the strongest possible case for the other side. What would be the legitimate basketball-only argument for ranking Caitlin Clark as the 9th best guard? The first and most obvious point is the games played. At the time of the vote, Clark had missed 10 of the Fever's first 18 regular season games due to 2 separate injuries. That's more than half the season on the sideline. The second point is her performance right before her most recent absence. The numbers were frankly brutal. In the 3 games preceding her injury, she shot a combined 1 for 23 from three-point range. Fans and analysts widely believed this slump was a direct result of her playing through the initial stages of that groin injury, with reports that even her practice shots were visibly off target during that period. So the argument from a player voting against her would sound something like this: how can we vote for someone who has missed over half the season and was in the worst shooting slump of her career right before she sat down? On paper, that line of reasoning seems logical, but that logic starts to fall apart the second you look beyond the surface-level box score and at her actual impact. Even with all the missed time, Caitlin Clark is still averaging a league-leading 8.9 assists per game. But it's about more than that. It's about gravity. It's about how the entire geometry of the court and the very identity of her team is transformed the second she steps on the floor. The statistics on this are staggering. With Clark on the court, the Indiana Fever's offensive rating is a formidable 107.5. In the minutes she has been off the court, that rating plummets to 82.2. An offensive rating of 82.2 would rank dead last in the entire WNBA. So the real question becomes, can you truly argue that a player whose presence alone makes her team's offense elite and whose absence makes it the worst in the league is only the 9th best player at her position? That's the question the players who voted against her have to answer. And it's a question that's creating a powerful new dynamic inside that Fever locker room. Because while this external conflict rages on, it seems to be having the opposite effect internally. All of this controversy, all of this noise, appears to be forging a powerful us-against-the-world mentality inside that Fever locker room. While the league-wide player vote suggests widespread jealousy, the atmosphere among the players actually wearing the Indiana uniform is one of remarkable unity and mutual support. You don't have to take my word for it. Just listen to how Ari McDonald, the player brought in to be Clark's new backcourt partner, talks about her 3 All-Star teammates and the chemistry they're building together.
Since an All-Star for the first time, especially knowing this time that it'd be here.
Like I said, grateful, man. My career has been what it's been, and so anytime I can get something like that on my resume, I'm very grateful.
I remember a few years ago, the last time you didn't make it out, how hard that was for you, especially especially having this season that you had. Now you've done it 3 times in a row. Does it ever get any different or feel any better or worse than the first time, or is it still that satisfying every time?
It's that satisfying every time. Yeah, I mean, everyone's trying to make that roster. So if they saw me as one of the ones to be All-Star, I'm going to take what I can out of it. And while it's hot, I'm going to take it.
Have you talked with Caitlin about drafting yet, or is that something you get to here later tonight?
She's saying that she has to draft later.
Yeah.
I hope she picks me. I hope she picks both of us, but obviously the reality is that it can go either way. But it would be good to have a lot of Fever girls together for that weekend.
What do you think is the difference for you having All-Star here, especially in
It'll be fun. Hopefully, I've never seen Indianapolis like shining bright, so hopefully it shines bright all weekend. It's a big deal for the city, but I look forward to all the festivities. It'll be fun.
How'd you find out?
I got a call. I least suspected call, actually. I was eating my pregame. So I was like, oh. And so when I answered the phone, and I was kind of surprised this was a number I didn't recognize. And once, I was talking to Kathy, it was a really good conversation, and she broke the news, and so it was very humbling.
Does it ever get old, though? Right?
No, not for me. I ain't never really had too many opportunities, so anytime I can get it, I'm going to take it. I'm going to be grateful about it.
Did you catch that? Pure positivity. Kudos to them, they deserve it and more. They're great human beings. There is zero hint of the tension we're seeing in the external narrative. She's not just happy for her teammates, she's celebrating their success and talking about how she's now more comfortable than ever inside that system, knowing where her teammates want to be. This is classic us against the world psychology. When a group feels targeted from the outside, whether it's through overly physical defense on the court, constant media criticism, or a player vote that ranks their superstar 9th at her position, they often pull together more tightly on the inside. Every perceived slight, every negative comment, every controversial vote just adds another log to their collective fire. It creates a powerful, unifying belief that the only people they can truly count on are the ones inside their own locker room. And that collective fire and all the political drama that ignited it is about to be put on full display in the most high-stakes event of the All-Star weekend, the draft itself. Because the All-Star draft, what is normally a lighthearted sideshow, has now been transformed into a political minefield. And Captain Caitlin Clark is the one who has to walk through it. Think about it. She isn't just another player on the roster, she's a team captain. She is responsible for drafting her squad, and every single choice she makes will now be intensely scrutinized through the lens of this voting controversy. As we heard in the clip that opened this entire video, her public plan was simple and heartwarming. Draft her teammates, Kelsey Mitchell and Aliyah Boston, and create a special hometown hero moment for the fans in Indianapolis. But because of how the players voted, that simple plan is now loaded with political dynamite. She is caught in a classic no-win situation. If she sticks to her plan and drafts her teammates over players who were ranked significantly higher by their peers, we're talking about perennial MVP candidates like A'ja Wilson, it will no longer be seen as simple team loyalty. It will be framed by thousands of online analysts as a direct shot back at the establishment, a deliberate snub of the players who, they believe, voted against her. It becomes a power move. But on the other hand, if she bows to the official player rankings and picks the quote-unquote best available player, she risks looking like she's caving to the pressure. She could be seen as validating the very players who slighted her, and in doing so, alienating the loyal fan base that expects her to have their back. Every pick she makes will be interpreted as a strategic move in this ongoing Cold War. It turns the draft from a celebration of talent into a high-stakes game of chess, with every move broadcast live for the world to analyze, debate, and dissect. The All-Star Game was supposed to be a showcase for the league's talent. Instead, it's become the primary battleground for its biggest cultural conflict, with the entire world watching to see what happens next. So when you connect all the dots, it becomes clear that the 2025 WNBA All-Star announcement was never just a simple list of names. It was a flashpoint. It ripped the curtain back on the cultural civil war brewing within the league, a conflict fueled by passionate new fans, the traditions of established followers, and deep-seated professional tensions. The voting data exposed the stark divide between the public's overwhelming support for Caitlin Clark and the complicated and seemingly resentful reception she's receiving from some of her own peers. Ultimately, the story isn't about who made an all-star team, it's about what the voting process revealed. A league grappling with a seismic shift with its biggest star caught right in the middle of the storm. So, what's your final take on all of this? Let me know the one thing that surprised you most from this breakdown in the comments below. Was it the players ranking Clark as the 9th best guard, the Lexie Hull fan vote controversy, or the us against the world mentality it's creating inside the Fever locker room? We're going to be tracking the fallout from this and the results of that All-Star draft right here. So make sure you subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell. You are not going to want to miss our next deep dive into this evolving story. And finally, if you believe this video adds crucial context to the conversation that's happening online, share it with another fan who needs to see the story behind the headlines.